Hello, everyone. Welcome to September Freeze YouTube channel. Um, Today is the World Children's Day, and we're going to celebrate today's importance with my young people. And before we start, I just want to make a quick recap about September 3, who we are, what we are doing for the people who's first time with us. So September 3 is founded in 2017 to stand up for the rights of imprisoned women and children in Turkey. And we are organizing event to raise awareness about those people, and also organizing social improvement projects to help the refugee women and children and make it easier their adaptation process to their new home. So today is the World Children's Day. It's first established in 1954 by United Nations to promote international togetherness, awareness among children worldwide, and improving children's welfare worldwide. So World Children's Day offers each of us to advocate and promote children's rights and give a chance to take action to build a better world. So the theme for 2021 is a better future for every child. And on November 20th, children and young people from all around the world, they are raising their voices on the issues that really matters for them. And this is the day for the adults, leaders, and governments to listen to those young people. And today, this is what we are gonna do. I have three amazing people with me, and they're gonna forward their demands to the leaders, what they're looking for the future, what they want. So first, I have Walla with me. She is 18. She was born in Turkey, but she is Turkish American. She is currently living in New Jersey. She enjoys the multicultural events, education herself about the world, and her career choice is computer science, which is nice. I'm a STEM girl. I'm happy to, having a young person in the STEM. And this is Mola. Mola, floor is yours. You can share your thoughts.
Hey, thank you for having me today and being able to celebrate National Children's Day with you. And I wrote my letter about refugee children because I thought like that was important. And I also wanted to, raise awareness about, what little kids go through every day that some may not be aware of. And here's my letter. I am here to convey a message to those who may or may not be aware of certain problems concerning refugee children. Today, here on National Children's Day, I want to raise awareness about refugees, specifically children who face many difficulties. There are multiple countries who have been in urgent need of humanitarian support for decades. Due to those needs, many families are forced to make decisions in order to survive. One of their main options is to migrate to a different country. These refugee families are seeking safety in other countries for their children. They want to live in a stable country. By stopping the refugees, we are putting many people in danger, especially children who are our future. One child can change the world, but why won't the world better the condition of that child? We should work to tell stories of those who have become refugees and those who experience human rights violations. There are many unaccompanied and separated children. We are concerned for their welfare. Children's safety and well-being must be prioritized. Seeking asylum is a human right. Then why are they being toyed between the borders of Poland and Belarus? How many more tragedies have to occur in order for people to take action? This is a human crisis. People trapped at the Belarus and Poland border are dying from hunger and cold with no shelter and protection. Children are dying from the cold in the 21st century. The Belarus regime must stop their political use of migrants and human rights abuses of refugees. Borders like Poland must aid in stabilizing this humanitarian crisis for refugees stuck at their borders. We must hold Belarus accountable for the humanitarian crisis at the borders. We must have them provide relief for the refugees. Better conditions and opportunities must be given to refugees, or else an entire generation of children are at risk of suffering psychological, emotional, educational, and economic consequences, depriving them of a healthy and productive future. Children from war-torn countries, political prosecution, climate change, and more deserve to live, not go hungry, but have education. Some parents separated under the Yuma program still remain apart from their kids 4 years later. Others are still missing. Those separated in Yuma in 2017 were as young as 10 months old. No one deserves this. Almost 1 million children were born in refugee camps this year. There were 20.7 million refugees in 2021. Only 35,000 of those were resettled. So 20,665,000 refugees are displaced in a time of worsening humanitarian needs, half of them being children. People don't decide randomly one day that they want to leave a country that they call home. They leave because they don't have a choice or a voice. If you were constantly harassed, hunted, tortured, sexually assaulted, and more, you would leave too. This has to change. Seeking asylum is a basic human right, and preventing people from doing so is a contravention of international law. Humans should be given rights, and they should be protected by these rights. Human rights should never be taken from people, whatever the condition or wherever the place. It doesn't matter. People become refugees not by choice, but by circumstances. And this is the letter I wrote to those who need to hear and listen about this. And I personally think that this should be taken more seriously because we're in the 21st century and there's a lot of countries and people that can provide relief, but they're not doing so, especially to kids. So that's what I wanted to talk about on National Children's Day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maula, so much. It was really nice. Actually, it's a really nice and especially important to that you point out the situation in the Poland and Belarus borderline. It was like a huge human crisis, and even in almost very end of the 2021. I mean, how can it be real, right? And it was really nice to point that topic. And also, I have a little note from your letter. It was really nice to hear that the one child can change the world, which is why we need to realize, okay, this is not just a child. This is basically a future of us and a future of the humanity. This is how we have to process the importance of our children and how should we, to act on those, important issues regarding their needs. So it was really nice. Thank you again. So as a second speaker, we have Maya with us. She is from Nigeria, sorry my pronunciation, and she's 16. She's currently senior in high school, and she is really interested in movies, especially fantasy movies. And as I understand, she's also criticizing and analyzing them, which is nice. And also she's gonna be my future colleague because I'm a biomedical student and she wants to be biomedical engineering. Yeah, go girls on STEM. And I'm really, really happy to hear that because as she wrote on her biography, she wrote that I want to inspire the young girl in the STEM while promoting the women's rights. It's a really important and a huge, goal of life. I'm really thank you for that. So, Moya, yes, you can continue. You can read your letter and, your topic.
Okay, so hi everyone. As she said, my name is Moya Salaluwadia, and I'm here to talk about the access to health systems around the world. And this topic is really dear to me because I have seen a lot of discrimination and a lot of wrongdoings in the health system in my country, and it has affected my family members and how they struggle day to day. So this is really important, and I hope to create awareness to other people who don't know about these things. So in our world today, about half of our population don't have access to any healthcare. And one of the reasons is geographical placements of clinics and hospitals. People who live in rural areas are more likely to struggle to get access of a clinic and hospital than a patient who lives in an urban city. There is such a huge gap in the distribution between areas, and it's so bad that most residents in rural areas have to spend about 2 to 5 hours driving to the nearest clinic. Most rural areas nowadays have a very high elderly population, and the elderly go through what is called underlying health conditions, which have to be regulated, monitored, and also have to be checked by different doctors every day. But there's no nearby clinic for them to go to, no sanctuary for them to report their claims about what they're feeling, what they're going through, the type of diseases and viruses they're going through, as well as no place to aid them and also guide them through their difficulties in the state at which they are. So what I hate the most about our health system is the time. They always say we are closed for the day, or they'll say, please come back tomorrow. Those infuriating words are the most you will get from the clinic when you complain about not being treated. Why is there a time limit for me to go to the clinic if there are doctors in the building ready to serve their duty? Or why do I have to wait for them to be ready when it's already scheduled at a particular time? Do they think that maybe I get injured or maybe I get sick at a particular time range? Clinics should be open, as well as hospitals should be open 24/7, especially if there's a limited number of facilities around that area. To make that possible, I believe doctors should be hired more to cover more of the early and the late shifts so that there can be a time extension. When a patient has access to a clinic and even has scheduled a meeting or an appointment, there are still traffic networks that may hinder them from going. Some people are unable to understand the road networks leading to the hospital, as well as not being able to drive due to no license, also being in the category of special assistance where they are not allowed to drive given the law. So they don't even bother going, especially if they can hire like taxi companies around that area. That's why it's important for people to understand that hospitals should be placed in an accessible area where in a local area, everybody can go there easily and fast. So hospitals and clinics can even partner up with different taxi companies like Uber, Lyft, and Bolt to give discounts and free rides to people who are going to a particular hospital that are unable to go by themselves. In hospitals, machines and equipment are the most fundamental and essential components a doctor needs. But when there is no availability of such tools, how will a doctor treat a patient properly and correctly without errors? In less economically developed countries, which are called the LEDCs, hospitals and clinics lack such equipment and are unable to treat the patient, which will lead to a worse health state or even death. This has led to hospitals rejecting patients that need special equipment like ventilators or MRI scanners or CRT scanners that are used to operate on them. And without them, this could lead to an error in the operation and then death. So I live in Nigeria, and this happens way too often in our healthcare system because we are severely underfunded, resulting in only about 24,000 hospitals in my nation being available and ready to serve people of the country. So going to hospitals nowadays are very scary, with virus infections going about and the fear of getting cancer. Going to the hospital, you have to get tested. That fear is creeped into you. But that's not why a lot of people are scared. It's because of the price. You walk into such a building, and the only thing you're thinking about is how much will it cost? Will my insurance cover the cost? Will I be able to afford it and still have money in the bank for necessities? In certain countries, getting healthcare can be very expensive, especially in countries like the US and even in my country, Nigeria, which drives people away from hospitals because they can't even afford it. This reduces the access to getting treated for low-income families. For me, this is one of the most concerning parts of the issues because I have heard stories of people going through such a dilemma, and then when they try to pay the bill, they land up in a major debt from the hospital. I believe this issue can be really resolved quickly if the hospital foundations, their leaders, and the hospital itself remind themselves that the priority is with the people and to help the people and not to make a major profit. So healthcare is obviously a human right to all, and no one should be worried about their access to it around the world. I hope that in the next few years, people of the medical world, which I hope to be one of them, will be able to take on these issues one by one and resolve them to create a better future for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mai. It was really, inspiring, your letter. And actually, it's a really nice major that you chose for, to become a real, those solutions that you offered in your letter. It's a perfect major. Congrats on that, first of all. And it was also, it doesn't make, or, heartbreaking, like people have to, take 5 hours to reach the nearest clinic. Like, this is obviously a major issue that the government or the leaders have to focus on it. And it was really good to point to point out. And I really like your solutions that you said, okay, let's give those people a solution and let's make the things for, for the people to easier their access for health systems. So you said, like, let's make a discount on Uber and Lyft, and let's check our doctors and, operating hours, our hospitals. And those are really, the bullet points that for the solution on that problem. It's also you mentioned that, okay, there's a lack of equipment in the hospital, so they reject people. So maybe when you got your diploma and you can really work on it, it's I heard the news that a group of biomedical students who developed a new device, and they were using, I'm not 100% sure, but it was Tanzania, I guess. They were using Tanzania, but normally the equipment was like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they just make for, I don't know, for like $100, which is like, huge improvement each. And which is what you're guys gonna do, hopefully in the future. I want to say thank you again for being in here today, and thanks for your letter. So for the next, we have Leila with us, and she is second year at Barnard College of Columbia University. She's majoring mathematical economics, right? Wow, it sounds really, wow, major. Good luck on that. But at the same time, she is doing pre-law track, which is also amazing. And she is, besides the academic, she is also nationally ranked fencer player, right? Fence player, pardon me. So welcome again, Leila. Thank you for being with us. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Initially, off the bat, I want to thank Set Them Free for organizing this event. I think it's very important to bring awareness and put effort into chasing solutions for these issues, especially when it comes to children's rights, because if we're not going to do it, then who is? But yeah, I want to thank Victor for being a great moderator and for my fellow youth activists for their great work. So when initially I was trying to choose a topic, education and children's rights is something that I was always passionate about, and there's a lot to be done regarding providing education for children in developing countries, which is a topic that I'm very passionate about. But in light of the pandemic, I wanted to focus on a topic and bring awareness to a topic that is not spoken about enough, I think. So I decided to write a letter about how the education of low-income students was impacted in the midst of the pandemic. COVID-19, as we all know, has impacted all of our lives in the last couple of years. One aspect being education. Unfortunately, the pandemic led to schools shutting down until they were able to provide remote learning. While higher income families were able to bounce back with remote learning from home, other lower income families did not have the same conditions to be able to provide students with tools needed for their education. Due to inequitable access to healthcare, income inequality, and disproportionate employment in high-risk, low-income Black, Latino, and Native American communities have borne the brunt of the pandemic, with dire health and economic impacts that hinder their children's educational opportunities and learning. There are various observed impacts of the pandemic on the education of low-income families, two of them being the lack of funding for technological tools, causing a setback in their attendance and participation in school, and financial and psychological conditions at home, making it harder for children to stay engaged in virtual classrooms. With remote learning in session, students need to have access to the right technological tools like a computer or tablet and Wi-Fi. Without the necessary tools, they are unable to attend online classes or unable to properly participate, causing them to fall behind. A Los Angeles Times article revealed stories of low-income students when schools began remote learning. Maria is a student in the Coachella Valley Unified School District, where 90% of the children are from low-income families. She did not have a computer, so she and her mother tried using a cell phone to access her online school, but the connection kept dropping and they give up after a week. Because of this, she got set back in her class and education. Unfortunately, districts with less funding and higher rates of poverty tend to lack resources for their low-income students, causing them to fall behind on their classes. But when the district have the proper funding, they are able to provide students with basic tools for them to stay on track. For example, Cooper, who attends school in the Las Virgenes Unified School District, where just 12% of students are from low-income families, they had a district-issued computer and good internet access at home. His mother reported that Cooper was able to follow along with his classes and did not fall behind. The difference between Maria's story and Cooper's story proves the importance of funding in school districts to prevent the further suffering of students' education during the pandemic. On a side note, the psychological setback during the pandemic is just as dangerous as the financial setback in education. Unfortunately, families of lower income have further struggled financially during the pandemic, causing stress and the worsening of already existing mental illnesses. Students with households struggling from mental illnesses are greatly impacted and are unable to stay engaged in school because of this. When schools close, students are unable to get away from home, which causes them to be further isolated and surrounded by the possibly toxic environment at home. No longer having counselors to talk to and without access to help, students' mental health suffers, leading to extreme loss in their learning. Joanna Meyer from the School of Medicine of Yale states, in either case, participation in distance learning depends on students' level of motivation and their ability to interpret the work assigned. In the case of younger children, successful engagement also depends on active support from parents who necessarily must help younger students, particularly non-readers, to access and interpret learning mentally, to access and interpret learning materials. When parents are unable to provide the needed active support due to being absent mentally at home or too busy trying to find ways to earn money for the household, the younger students are not able to get the proper education needed for them to stay on track with students their age. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought previously existing educational inequity to the forefront in a new way. Taking this opportunity to improve educational systems for the benefit of all children is a critical step in building a stronger nation. Providing support and resources to students, teachers, and administrators has never been more important than now, especially for the schools that lack funding. Some districts are addressing resource allocation issues by either sending iPads to students who don't have computers or partnering with internet service providers to expand internet access. Urging companies and businesses to be open for these partnerships is crucial to provide fast resources for lower income districts. Public libraries and community centers should be open to students even if they are open with low capacity, to provide a space with stable internet for the students that don't have it at home, and to also provide a safe space mentally. In the long run, however, policymakers will need to address funding gaps through equitable school financing, which is a research-backed mechanism in which funding and grants are allocated to support the needs of low-income students in order to improve the range of student outcomes. A system installed in school districts to provide psychological support for the students is also very important. Counselors can have meetings with students and their parents to discuss what needs to be done for the students to be engaged in class and also to provide psychological support. Historically speaking, fighting educational inequity has been an uphill battle, but considering how the pandemic has brought light to the societal vulnerabilities, there is a new sense of urgency that policymakers should act on, not only because of moral motivation, but because the Constitution requires that all kids be given equal educational opportunity, no matter what their race, ethnic background, religion, or sex, or whether they are rich or poor. Taking action in preventing the impacts of COVID-19 from deteriorating the education of low-income students is our duty. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was also really inspiring, and it's a really important topic. Accessing the education systems equally, especially after the COVID. I mean, we are not in the after session, I believe, not yet. We are not in there, but we were having a gap between high income families kids and low income families kids. We already had that even before the COVID, but with the COVID, the gap becomes huge. I mean, those kids are basically having a different difficulties besides having a computer and internet, and also the education system was protecting them from toxic environment. And it was really important to point out that you mentioned like psychological support. Yes, those kids we have to give them a math and science. We have to give them a tools to access the education systems, but also we have to support them in like everywhere, psychological, physical, and academic, right? It was really nice and important for me. And I don't know what you guys think about each other's letters. The three of you guys, you killed it. It was really nice to hear your ideas, and it was really hopeful for me and inspiring for me to see you guys to call those leaders. Okay, guys, today's our days. I mean, for me, every day is your days, but especially today's, okay, I'll admit it's more important. Today's our days. You have to listen our demands. We want to solve those problems. Just give us a, chance to build a better future, like this year's theme of UN. So I want to give you guys a chance if you want to add a comment about your each other's letters and topics, or if you have a question you can ask.
I just want to thank Leila and Moya. Like they both did great. I loved it. And I want to thank you, Gökçe, and like all the people that organized this event. It was great. I hope like actual diplomats and people listen to us and hear our voices for these problems, that are occurring around the world. Yeah, just thank you overall.
Thank you. Okay, I have a one general question. Each of you can answer it. So, well, each topic was really important, and you mentioned, but what was the trigger point for you to become the activist, or to point out that topic for this day? How did you choose? What was your initial aim to share your thoughts on that particular topic? Leila, you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, education for children's in terms of children's rights was a topic that I was always very passionate about. In high school, I actually went to Nigeria to volunteer as a teacher assistant, and also to observe how education system works there, to also be able to bring awareness to the education systems in third world countries as well. But when I was researching about education in terms of children's rights, I stumbled upon an article regarding how education has been suffering in low-income communities in California specifically. And they provided numerous stories from real students, and they also provide statistics about how people, like children signing up for school, the rates of children signing up for school has decreased by almost 30 to 40%. When I was reading those statistics, I was very surprised because I was like, what are these kids doing if they're not going to school? It's not something that you automatically infer. Like, it seemed so surreal for that to happen. Like a child not going to school wasn't something that I could have wrapped my head around in America, at least. So when I was reading that, I was very impacted to know that these students were not able to join school online. They don't have a computer, an iPad, sometimes access. Some of them are homeless. They don't have access to anything. And school was their safe space for them. So I think it's very important to make sure that we know those kids are out there. They're not getting the proper education, and they build the future generations of America. And just as a moral standpoint, like, we should be able to provide their basic right of education to them in a way that they can actually access it, rather than just saying we're providing free education, public system, but not actually tending for their needs. So that's why this topic was what I wanted to do today.
Okay, thank you. It was really nice answer for that.
Thank you.
How about you, Moya? Do you want to share your thoughts?
Of course. So I think around 2020, before like the COVID situation struck in Nigeria, a lot of public hospitals are known to like rejecting patients that are in need. And if you go to like a Nigerian public hospital, you see lines that are going to the outside of the hospital, to the sidewalks. Like, a lot of people are waiting, but they keep on rejecting. So growing up in that environment, I was not surprised by it, but I was surprised by how much it worsened during the COVID time. So I kept on searching about it. And I was just astounded by the numbers of people who died because of what the doctors and the nurses were doing. And I saw that there was no outrage, or there was no like a big public response to it. Everybody was just silent. So I was quite like angry. So I kept on researching on like corruption in the whole medical world. Then I just stumbled upon like improving the healthcare and the access to it. And because of that, that inspired me to take on a project for my IGCSEs, which is biodiversity and corruption. So it's just like a gradual and a progress in terms of like knowing the topic. It wasn't like a sudden thing that, oh, I got interested in. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to go into biomedical engineering as well. So when I researched more and more about it, it's just heartbreaking to know that a lot of people go through this every day. And I just want to try my best to like raise awareness to people who don't even know about it and just try to find ways to help them. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, you guys have really nice and inspiring, aims and goals for your on your specific topics. How about you, Mualla?
So before I go into my topic, I want to say something about Leila's topic. When the pandemic happened, my friend's dad is a principal in like of a school in like the low income families, and the kids were crying because they weren't going to be able to eat because the pandemic happened and they were gonna have school online, and that was their only way to eat. And when I heard that, I was just like, it was just so sad because they were just like, what are we gonna eat today? The school provided them food, and there are organizations where they provide food for low income families, and the school was providing them for the kids. But pandemic happened and everyone was home, so it was just so sad. And what motivated and inspired me to write my letter about refugee children is that some of my family members, they've gone to Greece, Athens, and they have heard and listened to the stories of refugees there. And I've always been involved in their stories and heard about them. The least we can do is talk about their stories. We can't do a lot. And that really inspired me to write about refugees because I hear a lot of stories about them and what they go through, and the children, the psychological state of the children. And, I heard stories where like a 7-year-old would act like a 30-year-old because he didn't have his dad, or his mom had suffered so much. Seeing all of that, the kid wasn't even acting like a child, wasn't even playing around. He would just sit and, like serve the guests, but he's like 6 years old. And like, he was just so mature. And I realized how hard that is because I lived, thankfully, like I'm thanking God and everyone in my family, I lived a normal childhood, but those kids are not able to live a normal childhood. They're not even able to have fun because of how much, mental stress and emotional stress they've gone through. So that's why I wanted to talk about that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before we are about to end our event, but before the ending, I just really want to say thank you, guys. I'm really, happy to celebrate this this specific day, November 20th, or Children's Day with you, because it's, when we hear like the adults, when we hear from you, it's just more inspiring. We said, okay, these guys are the future and they know what they should do or what they have to do. They are doing their job, and it's the time that we have to help them. We have to support the young people and child to, for having a better future. It was really nice. And thank you again for being with me today. And I want to say thank you for your audience to celebrate with us this day, November 20th, our Children's Day. I hope next year and for the after years, we can celebrate together and, raise the awareness